Alright, well, welcome in, everybody. Welcome all you in, Boopers. Glad to have you all in here today for the Dead by Daylight podcast of Nicky, Fox, and the Fox Den. So glad to have you all today. Well, today, to be honest with you all, we'll be going over a kind of an interesting topic that I'm actually kind of excited to go over with. So let's get into it, guys. Today specifically, we're going to be going over the development of Dead by Daylight and what caused the developers to make Dead by Daylight the way that it is. So, and some also interesting things that you guys actually probably have never even heard of, such as Behavior. The company did not actually design or previously own Dead by Daylight, and in fact, it was sold to Dead by Daylight, and I think you guys will find out interesting about some of the history of it. So if you guys enjoy that content, just stick around because we'll be going over it. But I hope everyone is having a great day today. But welcome in the Fox Den, guys. For those who don't know me, I'm a big Dead by Daylight player. I've done main, survivor, killer. I've played for probably about 3 to 4 years now, so I don't know the exact number of days, but it's probably closer to 3 and, in 3 and 8 months maybe. I'm not even sure. Close to 4 years probably, so. But welcome in, guys. I'm glad to have you all here today. So without further ado, let's jump into it. But yeah, basically this game, Dead by Daylight, so if you guys haven't heard of this game, let me just give you an abbreviation of what it is. I mean, why are you even here if you haven't seen Dead by Daylight? If you are here and you don't know Dead by Daylight, welcome in anyways. But Dead by Daylight is a horror game online, full of, jump scares, and there's 4 survivors, 1 killer, and the killer is to kill the survivors, and the survivors are meant to get generators done to escape and do objectives to escape and survive, and it's pretty basic, self-explanatory. But like, one of the things that made Dead by Daylight and how they actually created the game to be as it is very interesting, believe it or not. It's very interesting. You'll find out why. They really wanted the game to feel as individual as possible. They wanted to make the game, like, the developers during the development, they wanted a horror game that was different from traditional video games. Something different from the traditional horror game. I mean, you guys know what the traditional horror game is, right? Where you just walk in there and you're walking around, you turn a corner, and there is a killer or like this horrifying thing that's made to get you a jump scare, and you can hear you can visually see something like your heart rate on screen, or you can hear your survivor, or your character that you're being in a horror game. You can kind of feel that the character in game is, really scared or whatnot, which kind of makes you worried. But you know what? You guys know how it works, where it just seems quite distant. The survivor, or I keep saying survivor because I'm thinking Dead by Daylight. Forgive me, guys. But the character in a horror game, typically speaking, you do not connect with. You just don't connect with that person. You don't feel a correlation. It's more the jump scares that make us enjoy the horror game. It's not really for the sake of being that character. Well, Dead by Daylight developers really wanted to focus on making the game like you were that character. They wanted to put you in that situation where, for instance, everybody has a favorite survivor or killer, and typically speaking, one of the big reasons why we choose a specific character is often because we feel as if we relate to them, or we have that connection to them. I think a lot of people would feel that. I mean, if you play Dead by Daylight, you probably have that favorite Meg or Dwight. For me personally, I'm a Dwight main, and I main Dwight because I feel that he's me. And the developers actually they really studied into this and wanted to make the game as as relatable as possible, so that way they could see you being in that situation. They wanted you just as the, gamer to be a part of the actual environment, and they didn't want it to just be a thing of, just being a third person that's just playing a game. No, they wanted you to be in the game and to make it so that way the character wasn't scared, but you. And that was one reason why they don't really have visualizations on screen. And You know, because if you saw on screen that you're supposed to be scared, why would that make you scared? Why would that make you scared? Your character would be scared, and then that character would tell you to be scared. No, the developers wanted you to be scared as the person and not the character, which would make the game so much more exciting and so much more fun, because it's not like you can, you can't just you can't just appear in a game without a connection and genuinely enjoy it, or be, you can't have that same connection as if you were disconnected or connected from the game. I'm struggling to explain this. I know I am. I'm sorry. But the developers really wanted you to focus on this. They really wanted that connection, and they didn't want it to be this, character that you're playing. They wanted you to be that character. They wanted to see you, freak out and panic and to make horrible decisions to, be to your demise and your ending. So it's quite interesting. And one of the ways they did that was they, like, talking to the developers and seeing what they've done, and doing some really deep research, is the developers really wanted it different from other games, and the only way that they did that was they created things like heartbeats. Like when the killer would come near, they were hearing heartbeats instead of a visualization or showing that your character was getting scared, because typically speaking, your character never changes its expression. Maybe when it's injured, you might have a different, you might be limping, but your facial expressions don't change, and your character's the same. That is because Dead by Daylight's actually more focusing on you rather than the character itself. And as survivors, we actually get scared, and it really does work, because you hear the heart rate and it scares you, but the character is not doing anything, because that's up to you. Then you're not supposed to be watching your character. You're the one supposed to be involved in the game, and it's quite interesting if you think about it. Like, no other horror game does this, even online horror games. The Jason game, can't remember what it's called, but it's the Jason game with all the survivors. You go and get all the parts and you collect them, and then you go and build the vehicle. One reason for that game, it didn't succeed very well. It didn't have that connection as much. It seemed to be more the survivors being scared when the killer would come by or something else. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's one of those things where it's that divide, and it's quite interesting when you think about it, that the developers really put in all this time and effort to create these environments that are these are just on a PC screen and in a computer, but often we connect to it being real life. And that is what the developers really wanted for this game, was that connection. And that's what they really pushed for. And, it was quite interesting, to be honest with you, because there's really no replacement for human nature. And putting a person into that situation to see them literally just make the most horrible decisions. Just horrible decisions, like vaulting a window right into a killer because you're panicked. It's just hilarious, and it's comedy, and it's funny. And oftentimes you can see survivors get cocky and getting, slaughtered because they just thought they could make it, and they couldn't make it. And that's what the developers wanted, was this, reality, that they wanted this game to be real as possible without it actually being real. And I think that's one reason why this game has become so successful, is that part of the game. I mean, how many of you guys have actually played this game and been like, oh yeah, I don't have a connection to this game. I can't, I have zero connection. I mean, a lot of people typically do. Now, doesn't mean for everybody, obviously. There's some games that a lot of people just have no connection to in video games or films, but that's what usually makes a video game do well in, is when, you have a connection, or you can relate to to the characters in the game, and that's what makes film in and of itself so successful, is that a really good film always has a very good story of something we can all connect to and say, you know what, I can see me in that situation, or I feel this way and I can feel this character. And it's one of those things where they did a really good job at the beginning, especially when designing it. As survivors, you see from a third person perspective. That way you can see the killer come right past you. You could be hiding in some short, tall grass, and the killer you can see walk right past you without seeing you, just inches away from you. And that survivor is now panicked. The viewer, the player itself is horrified because they don't know if they're going to get found. They're in these bushes, and is the killer going to get them or is it not? And it creates that panic in you. While versus a killer, they're in first person. They have an objective to do. They are literally focused on that objective. And it's one of those things where while it may be a thing of not being able to, how would I explain it? I'm trying to figure out a way to explain this well, but it's one of those things where if you were in third person and you are going to do objectives, you're not really focused on objectives. You're more focused on the character itself. You're more focused on the environment. And while you're, as a killer, it doesn't seem like you're that aggressive. You get what I'm saying? It's one of those things where you will be kind of away from being a survivor. It's that distancing, but it's rather you are there. You are right there. You're looking at your hands. You have an objective to do. You're not there to goof around. You're not there to be scared. No, you're there for the job. And that's something that they really did well in with the community and Dead by Daylight developers is they just put all this work and studying into it, and it really does work. It really does, because when I play killer, I notice my mood goes so much more serious and so much more focused when I play killer, just from the environment of the game. And while I'm survivor, I'm more often having a good time and laughing, and I'm not saying that playing killer I don't enjoy, but it's one of those balances where it's quite interesting. Another thing that I've learned about Dead by Daylight with speaking to its developers and trying to understand how the game works is one of the things that they actually did to the game itself was they made the map part of the killer itself, where the killer has a connection with the the map itself, where let's say this, a killer is away on the other end of the map, a survivor throws in a pallet, you hear that red boof, that sound effect where you turn and you see that red, flower looking thing in the distance, and the map's telling you, come over here, the sounds from over here, the survivor. That is literally the map itself trying to tell you, it's that connection where it's basically the entity or the realm of itself trying to communicate and help the killer, where it's not just a way of helping killers find survivors. Well, it is, but it's more of a focus on that connection where it makes it feel as if that is your home. This map, this is your home, where you're at, and you are, the killer. You are, the master of whatever is going on. And that is something that Dead by Daylight really focused on as well, was instead of that's why you don't have just the sound waves, like for instance on vaulting. That's why you don't hear it and just see a sound of where the general direction. No, it's like saying, hey, it's right here is where the sound happened, check it out. And it's basically that sense is what they were originally going to do. They thought about having it just have sound waves or whatnot, like you would in a normal horror game, but this is not a normal horror game. This is something specific. And Dead by Daylight really put in some effort into figuring it out, what they should do. And they decided that, this would be the best way to connect you as the killer and the map as being a living thing almost, and making it feel all more, involved, that you're just this, you're really one, like you're connected with this map, that this is you as killer, that this is you, and these are your objectives, and you need to get rid of these survivors. And it's quite, I don't know, it's one of those things where I think Dead by Daylight did a really good job in it, in my opinion. I just kind of wish they, I wish that they would have made it a little bit more what's the word? I don't even know what I was going to say, so just scratch that. Just don't even worry about it, guys. But honestly, it was quite interesting. They really made the survivor and killer different for these specific reasons. And one thing that they did do a very good job on was finding that difference between survivor and killer and their angle of views. And let me elaborate some on what I mean by that. Like one of what I'm basically meaning on that specifically is, hang on, let me adjust my notes here because I just realized my notes were all screwed up. All right, is like killer and survivor camera angles are different, as you already know. They're very different. Where a killer is in first person and survivor is in third person. Well, there's a big reason for that. Is a killer focuses in first person because they have an objective to do. They are there for one thing and one thing only, to get rid of the survivors. They don't care about anything else. That is their home. There are survivors in it, and they need to get rid of them. They need to give them to the entity. That is the only way to get rid of them, and you have to, you're not to let them escape. That is how it works. And that's how it's always been in Dead by Daylight. And they did it first person for the sake of, they wanted you to be extremely focused. They didn't want you just, bouncing around, looking around the map, looking around, thinking, ooh, la, 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 this is what I'm doing. No, they wanted you to have this objective, to get it done, to see what you're going to need to do, and do it. And while survivors kind of just look around, they can see the intense moments, such as a survivor, you're a killer walking right past them, they can find other survivors. It's kind of they're there to, be in the first time, being in wonder, trying to figure out where are they, and what's going on. That's part of the life of Dead by Daylight, is that sense of being able to, see the environment for being a new survivor and not being able to understand. While as a killer, it's more focused on, what this is. This is your home. This is you. This is, you already don't need to look around. You know what you need to do. And that's one thing that Dead by Daylight did a really good job in, is dividing both of those and making the game feel as most realistic as possible. And I think they really did a good job on it, because they really invested a lot of time and effort into ensuring that there was that balance made. And I'm sorry if we kind of go over some other things in this topic. My microphone keeps cutting out and recording, so I'm having to re-record selections. So if I just seem to be talking about the same thing or have spoken about, forgive me. This is not, it was kind of an accident. I've recorded this podcast, I think, twice now, all the way through. This is my third time, and I'm just I'm just going to keep track of it, and hopefully, this is why we're going for a PC, guys. This is one reason. Anyways, a little off topic there. Let's get back into it. But one thing that they did is they ensured that Dead by Daylight, you could feel that connection with the map. And one thing that they did for that was, instead of using sound waves when a survivor vaults a window, you know how you hear that sound, or you can be on the other end of the map and someone makes a loud noise, you can see them and hear that big booming sound effect with a blossom. Well, when you look over there, you'll see it visually. And originally, Dead by Daylight thought about doing sound waves, but the reason for them not doing these sound waves was for the sake of being able to actually see and being a part of the map, saying the map itself is screaming, saying, hey, it's here. Instead of it being the sound, they wanted it to be the map itself was speaking to you, for that connection between you and killer, as if this map was alive and the entity itself was the map. And where, it was a game of cat and mouse, but instead of it being just this home of wood, it's the cat was, it was the house that the cat was in is connected to the cat, and that it was saying, hey, the mice are over here, we're helping you. And it's that sense to create that environment of, as a killer, it's this evil, dark, mysterious thing that's happening that the survivors themselves don't know how to explain, and that's why they're in third person and wonder is, they don't even know what's going on with this map, because this map itself, it can create things that will, block a survivor from vaulting a window. It can create, different things like Blood Warden. It's this mysterious, alive thing that seems to control the map, and survivors can't understand it, and they sit there looking in third person trying to figure out what's going on and where are they to go, and it creates that sense of awe and that alarmness, confusion, and it just adds to Dead by Daylight's atmosphere of mysteriousness, and it's really interesting. It really is worth, deeply thinking about, because I never knew all this until I did some research. Yeah, sorry, like that kind of threw me off when I had to record a couple times. I'm like, trying to figure out what else I need to talk about. Oh yes, here's another thing, guys. Starbreeze. Okay, yeah, did you guys know that actually Dead by Daylight was not originally owned by Behavior? In fact, it was far from that, where Behavior had no involvement in Dead by Daylight, and still kind of, they might own Dead by Daylight, but it's kind of, I'll explain a little bit more into it, that Starbreeze had originally developed Dead by Daylight, and which is a gaming company, and they had invested they invested a lot of money into the original development of the game. Specifically, Starbreeze, this company that made Dead by Daylight, they had originally developed this game, invested $2 million into Dead by Daylight's development. $2 million, guys. That is a lot of money for a development of a game that's never been created before. That is insane, guys. Behavior itself never had any involvement in it until actually afterwards, where they purchased the rights of this game, which we'll go into that in a bit and explain some things that are actually currently going on with Dead by Daylight and Behavior. Is Starbreeze had invested its $2 million to develop this game, and then they sold over 270,000 copies within the first week of its release, on PC, where Starbreeze had created this game, this concept, and this origin of this mysterious game, and it then became a thing of, within its first week of it being on sale on PC, they sold 270,000 copies, guys. 1,000. That is a lot of copies in 1 week. And then they ended up being purchased. Then Starbreeze ended up selling the rights to Dead by Daylight to Behavior for $16 million. So Behavior literally purchased Dead by Daylight for $16 million by Starbreeze, and they're currently paying, I think it's approximately 50% of the income currently made. So it's 50% of the profit goes to Starbreeze to this day. So if Dead by Daylight creates, not creates, but if they, sell something in profit terms, they get 50%, if I'm correct in that. And it's quite interesting. I never knew that Dead by Daylight was not developed by Behavior. I thought Behavior had developed it, but apparently not. Did you know that? Let me know in the comments below if you had even known that, because that to me is very shocking. And Starbreeze, yeah, they didn't develop. They are the ones that you have to think to develop it, and they actually made over $42 million. They made over $42 million within the time period of them originally owning the game. So you can see easily why Behavior had purchased $16 million worth of stuff. They had paid $16 million. You can understand, because that game was just making bank, and Behavior's I want a piece of that cake. And they've actually done a pretty decent job on getting it so that way it's on console and cross-platform now. It's taken them forever to do, but they're doing it decently. So that's quite interesting. Did you guys ever know this? And Dead by Daylight currently now is creating more content. Behaviors adding more and more content every single year, where they're adding in new killers, survivors, and I don't know. I feel like Behavior's kind of ruining the original gaming of it, because back in the day, it was really focused on the story, and now Dead by Daylight, I feel like it's more focused on money and how many chapters can they release. It doesn't matter the backstory. So I kind of don't like what behavior is going on with it now, but I think they still have done a really good job with the game, and it's quite interesting. I mean, $42 million in net sales, guys. That in the first, with Starbreeze. I mean, just imagine how much Dead by Daylight has made. Behavior. I mean, they've sold for years now. I think they sold it back in like 2017-18 was when they Starbreeze had sold Dead by Daylight to Behavior, and from that point on, I mean, it's been like 4 to 5 years now. I mean, 4 years maybe, and they've literally have had so many copies sold that it is unreal, to the point of where they probably have made so much bank off of it. I'm not sure the current amount. I couldn't find that number online. Where, yeah, I didn't ask either of what they've currently made, but I could just imagine it's probably close to hundreds of millions of dollars at this point of net worth sales. So that right there is, I could just imagine. But yeah, guys, well, sorry for some of the confusion I'm sure that was in there. I originally have, like I said, recorded this podcast like 3 times now. And so if some confusion was in there, forgive me. I just don't want to spend another hour talking to I've had to spend, I think this is like my second hour of me recording of this podcast, and it's always some technical difficulties. So that goes into also reminding me, we are trying to right now build a PC, and because of the situation we're in, I am not able to really have extra money for the finance. So if you do enjoy the podcast, feel free to leave a tip or something else below. If not, that's perfectly fine. Feel free to leave a subscription, leave a like. Links are all below. If you guys do like to play Dead by Daylight, I stream a lot of Dead by Daylight, and you're welcome to join in all the time. I usually do Survivor. We survive with you guys a lot in the Fox Den. So if you guys want to come play with me in Dead by Daylight, you're welcome to. Just hit me up. My Twitch is below. I appreciate you guys listening. I hope you guys learned something today and something that you all enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you did, why not subscribe? Give a follow, because you know what? You listen through this podcast as it is. We'll have more stuff coming out. Better podcasts as well. Better content. And I cannot wait to show you guys as time goes on. So if you guys did listen, which if you're still here, if you listen to this and you're still here, I'm surprised right now that you listen to this if you have not subscribed already, because clearly you're here for some reason and you might like future content. So I appreciate you guys. I hope all you Booper Snoopers are having a wonderful day. Feel free to check out my Twitch, leave a tip, whatever it is. It all supports the channel, guys. Leave a like, give a subscribe. It don't matter to me. But guys, honestly, comment below. I do need to know who here knew about Starbreeze selling to Dead by Daylight and who didn't. Because I never knew that, and I've been playing Dead by Daylight for years. And I never knew that until I did my research and heard about it. But yeah, well, I appreciate each and every one of you guys, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Until next time, Booper Snoopers, peace out.